Ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience is to be.
I have to object to that.
But you just said
I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient human being. You're right. There's two ways you cannot understand something. One is to be too far from it. We're too far from it. We can't see like you can. One is to be too close to something. And then sometimes you can't see it accurately either.
Bill Maher has officially cut ties with the left, sending himself straight into political purgatory. His fiery rants and relentless attacks on Democratic guests laid bare truths that few dared to acknowledge, even without a formal declaration of betrayal. In one electrifying showdown, Maher stunned the audience by wielding words like a hammer, dismantling his guests' attempts at race baiting. The impact was nothing short of spectacular. Hit, like, and subscribe now to witness more explosive moments exposing the pretenders and politics.
Said at the Super Bowl, there, for the first time in I think 4 years now, the Trump administration is making them take away end racism, which they had written in the end zone, right? And when
why? It just seems silly. I mean,
to do it or not to do it?
Why get rid of it?
Oh, I could tell you why.
I know, but it's just like
because it was stupid to begin with.
Yeah, but
let me ask you, who's it for? And if you're a racist and you see end racism in the end zone, you're going to stop being a racist?
This is Tara Palmery, a liberal media correspondent delivering the kind of virtue signaling that has become the hallmark of the woke left, dressing it up as policy and scattering fancy words everywhere. Bill Maher, however, wasn't swayed by the flashy rhetoric. With a single sharp question, he pierced through her arguments, revealing the weaknesses in her logic. She faltered, not with a snarky comeback, but with the quiet realization that her statements collapse the moment they face reality. Isn't that the real takeaway? The left often blurs the line between moral theater and actual progress. They speak endlessly about inclusivity, equity, and justice, yet vanish when the discussion turns to pressing issues like borders, inflation, crime, or national security. Maher's challenge served as a reminder that words without substance are empty. It's worth asking whether these activists pause to consider that hashtags alone don't improve daily life, protect neighborhoods, or cover the costs of real-world problems.
But the sentiment is basically like, don't be a...
But I think it's an effort to nag us during a football game about something that doesn't change anything or any. If I'm not a racist and I see it, it doesn't matter. And if I am a racist, it's gonna make me more of a racist.
Like, I think if you write, don't be an on the end zone, everybody will agree with that.
For those unfamiliar, the slogan "End Racism" didn't vanish just because a president waved a magic wand. When corporate America finally shook off its woke-induced haze, the phrase quietly faded. For nearly a decade, CEOs and PR teams plastered rainbow logos and hollow slogans everywhere, hoping to appease Twitter mobs and fringe activists. The aim was never real change, merely dodging digital outrage in a culture driven by fury. Then the story shifted. The tide turned. In the aftermath of the woke craze, companies began returning to practical strategies and steering clear of empty hashtags. The message was clear. The crowd wasn't as combative anymore. Performative politics lost its appeal, and pandering quickly became passé.
Under the previous administration, we would have inquiries. We would request information. We would want cabinet secretaries and assistant secretaries and deputy secretaries to come before committee. We would send letter after letter after letter and get no response. The Biden administration operated literally in the shadows. They would not tell you anything that was going on. At least Donald Trump puts it out in the litany of orders that come out that day. Here's what we're doing today. We're going into the Department of Justice. We are taking these attorneys and they are under supervisory review, or however they choose to phrase it. You knew nothing that was going on in Joe Biden's presidency.
These same individuals still have the nerve to call themselves supporters of democracy. But what kind of democracy keeps its citizens in the dark? Transparency is nowhere to be found. Headlines are often fabricated, narratives twisted into impossible shapes, and press conferences meticulously choreographed. And when they do reveal something, it's rarely truth. It's just deception with a new coat of paint. The closer you examine the Democrats, the murkier it all becomes. Pure smoke, political theater, and mirrors lie behind the curtain. Regardless of how you feel about Trump, he has earned a reputation for delivering on his promises. Democrats, on the other hand, are masters of the broken pledge. Take Biden, for instance. He promised to enforce the law and hold his child accountable, yet when the time came, he shifted the levers in his favor. Classic textbook hypocrisy.
Bunch of privileged mean girls complaining about privilege and trying to make fetch happen. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Oh, right, and then re-elected him. Maybe you missed it because it wasn't on TikTok.
For a while, Bill Maher showed no signs of easing up. He continued to call out Tara Palmery for doing what the left has turned into an art form, ignoring facts and interpreting every issue through rigid gendered and racial lenses. The Democratic National Committee keeps repeating the same old playbook: push identity politics, stir division, and hope no one notices the lack of real solutions. But Americans are tuning out. The DNC's supposed strategy is starting to look like a poorly staged rerun as voters recognize the trap. The real frustration lies in their refusal to adapt. Rather than evolve, they double down, holding on to the same combative narratives that once drew attention but now only reveal weaknesses. Maher's challenge simply underscored the point. Focusing on identity over substance is not only outdated, it's a losing strategy, and the window to change course is quickly closing.
And sexism, Hillary got 3 million more votes than Trump, which in a normal country would be called a victory. It wasn't 21st century sexism that prevented a woman from being president. It was the Electoral College. Democrats run for office as if the voters don't live here, as if they don't go to the grocery store and Starbucks and the office, but they do.
Democrats often claim that Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris weren't embraced in America because of their gender. It's their first line of defense, a fabricated barrier that shields them from admitting their mistakes. Bill Maher cuts through that narrative sharply. Gender was never the real issue. What drove voters away was their failure to tackle the problems that affect everyday Americans. Instead, Democrats focus on pronouns, police everyone's language, and turn every debate into a lecture on race or gender, rather than addressing pressing concerns like rising costs, border instability, surging urban crime, or declining public trust in government. Maher's observation resonates because it's true. Female candidates don't repel voters. What does is a party that prioritizes identity theater over practical solutions. And as a result, Democrats continue to lose support.
They see women and people of color, and it doesn't look like some patriarchal racist nightmare. Kamala spent 100 days telling voters, I know it feels like crime and illegal immigration are bad, but your feelings, look at this chart. Yes, there's a lot to not like already about the new regime, but maybe take 1 week to ask what you did wrong. The basis for Democratic campaigns has become, we're the smart people. That we know from the get-go.
The Democrats' biggest flaw has always been this very attitude. They enter every room acting as if they are the intellectual elite. Anyone who questions their stance or refuses to accept their views as absolute is quickly labeled foolish, outdated, or ignorant. Every speech, argument, and carefully edited media clip carries this sense of arrogance. They lecture the nation as if they alone hold the key to virtue, constantly scheming morally. It's exhausting. Their intolerance isn't just grating, it's deeply divisive. Instead of persuading, they shame. Instead of building bridges, they burn them. In the process, they've alienated more than half the country, creating a party that outwardly champions diversity while practicing one of the harshest forms of exclusion behind the scenes.
Systemic racism. And most times...
Has it gotten worse since 1960?
Yes, actually...
Systemic racism has gotten worse since Jim Crow.
Yes, so you want me to give you a stat? Black home ownership today is less than it was pre-Fair Housing Act of 1968. The schools are falling apart. The infrastructure is eroding. I think the ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience is to be...
I have to object to that.
But you just said
I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient...
Democrats are quick to label anyone who challenges their views as someone trying to drag America back into the past. It's a tactic meant to intimidate, branding dissenters as primitive or backwards. But the truth tells a different story. Since the 1960s, America has made remarkable progress. Women not only vote, they lead Fortune 500 companies, hold legislative seats, and run for president. We've even had our first female vice president, a woman of color, a milestone that alone shatters the old narratives the left keeps recycling. The country is evolving, opening doors that were once closed, yet the left continues to act as though nothing has changed, clinging to outdated victimization politics instead of recognizing real advancements. The reality of modern America no longer matches their narrative.
All you have to do is ask my father, who literally fought in the Orangeburg Massacre, right? Who helped found SNCC, who marched with Marion Barry and Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King, and the list goes on and on and on. And he will tell you today that he feels like this country's in 1954. And so if you want to talk about somebody—
But that doesn't mean it is.
Well,
you said he feels that way. That's ridiculous.
When Barry Sears began making racially charged remarks, Bill Maher didn't let it slide. Sellers claimed that people of a different background could never truly grasp the African-American experience. Maher pushed back firmly. Opinions reinforce each other, he countered. Sometimes being too close or too distant to an issue can cloud perspective. Despite his apparent intensity, Maher suggested that Sellers might be so absorbed in the narrative of racial struggle that he couldn't step back and see the broader picture. It was a courageous and important reminder understanding isn't limited by skin color, and framing every discussion solely around race can often complicate rather than clarify. Maher's challenge highlighted a deeper truth. Uncovering the real cause of a problem takes time, and proximity doesn't always bring clarity.
What I am saying though is for you to discount my father's experience and say
I'm not discounting it.
And to say it was silly.
I'm not.
No, he was.
No
Were
shit.
you?
No, but he's still alive. Like he's
Okay.
right here. Like
right, but the idea that if I were to say to you as a Jew that the experience of Jews in the United States today is worse than the experience of Jews in Europe in 1939, I would not be stating accurately.
Correct.
It's not true.
That's
and it's
right.
also not true to say that the experience of black people in America in 2024 is worse on a general level than the experience of black men in 1954 in Alabama.
The belief that America is wholly, irredeemably racist has long underpinned the careers and fortunes of many so-called race specialists. Their livelihood depends on keeping that narrative alive. To protect their influence, they will say anything, twist facts, spin stories, and rile up their audiences. Their prominence and compensation would quickly vanish if the conversation shifted to acknowledge real progress. Yet, this uncomfortable truth remains. Black lives in America are better now than they were decades ago. Opportunities that were once unimaginable are now a reality. We have seen black mayors, governors, senators, CEOs, billionaires, and even a two-term black president, spanning politics, business, entertainment, and education. That doesn't erase all problems, of course, but it's dishonest to act as if nothing has changed. Bill Maher has repeatedly highlighted this gap between perception and reality. From calling out Tara Palmieri for prioritizing identity over substance to challenging Barrister's racial assumptions, Maher has reminded audiences that skin color doesn't dictate understanding, and that framing every conversation around race risks confusion rather than clarity. His pointed critiques slice through the left's moral theater, exposing how much of their influence relies on perpetuating grievance rather than addressing real issues. Democrats continue to prioritize performative identity, politics over practical solutions, from inflation and crime to national security, all while clinging to narratives that no longer reflect the country's evolving reality. Maher's interventions are a sharp reminder that progress cannot be ignored. Meaningless slogans, race baiting, and moral posturing cannot substitute for substance. The left's refusal to acknowledge America's advances is not accidental. It is essential to maintaining their authority. The moment they admit real progress, their entire foundation begins to crumble. Today's discussion ends on that note. Facts, clarity, and meaningful discourse matter far more than performative politics, and the truth is steadily reclaiming its place in the conversation.